All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the complex constitutional mechanics that run the world's largest democracy. If you've ever wondered how the gears actually turn to keep a billion people governed, you're absolutely in the right place.
So, how do you actually share power in a nation of a billion people? To understand this, we have to start with the most fundamental challenge of federalism, balancing a powerful central authority with incredibly diverse, localized states. How do you ensure national unity without completely crushing local autonomy? It's a massive constitutional tightrope walk, and we're going to break down exactly how the Indian Constitution attempts to pull this off.
Think of it like the DNA of the Indian state. The architectural blueprint of this massive system is essentially divided into three manageable pillars: legislative relations, administrative relations, and financial relations.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with those three pillars of power, then look at who makes the laws, how we interpret the rules, directing state administrations, resolving interstate disputes, and finally, the flow of money.
Okay, Section 1. Who makes the laws? Let's take a look at the three lists of Schedule 7.
The Constitution basically organizes all lawmaking power using Schedule 7, and it divides subjects into three distinct lists. You have the Union List, which contains the most numerous and important subjects. The center has exclusive jurisdiction there. Then we have the State List, where states typically call the shots. And finally, there's the Concurrent List, where both can legislate. But here's the crucial part. If there's a clash, or if a totally new subject pops up out of nowhere, the union law prevails. So right out of the gate, we're seeing a pretty heavy tilt towards the center.
But wait, here is the plot twist. Parliament actually has 5 rapid-fire exceptions where they can override the state list entirely. This can happen if the Rajya Sabha authorizes it during a national or state emergency to implement international treaties or, and this is super interesting, if 2 or more states literally request the center to step in and make a law for them.
And you know, even when states do successfully pass bills on their own subjects, the sender still keeps a hand on the steering wheel. For example, a state governor can simply reserve a bill for the president's consideration. And get this, the president isn't even legally bound to approve it. The same logic applies to taking over private property for public use.
Section 2. Interpreting the rules when laws inevitably collide. So what happens when both sides claim jurisdiction over a law? Well, this is where the judicial referees step in using the pith and substance test. They essentially look past the superficial wording of a law to find its true core essence. Take the 1951 Bombay Prohibition Act, for example. If a law looks like it's stepping on toes, but its true pith and substance belongs to the legislature that actually wrote it, the courts are going to uphold it. It's only thrown out if it's a genuine core encroachment.
Which brings us to this brilliant quote: "You can't do indirectly what you can't do directly." This beautifully captures a related concept called the doctrine of colorable legislation. It acts as a strict legal referee, preventing lawmakers from just sneaking around constitutional boundaries. Basically, if you don't have the power to legislate on a subject directly, you absolutely cannot dress it up and try to pass it off indirectly. The courts will always look at the true subject matter.
Moving on to Section 3, directing state administrations and enforcing those laws.
Think of this dynamic kind of like a parent company and a subsidiary. A state's executive power has to ensure compliance with parliamentary laws. The center can even issue direct administrative directives to states, say for maintaining national communication lines or protecting railways. So the million-dollar question is, what happens if a state just flat-out refuses to listen? Well, the Constitution provides a rather heavy hammer. If a state completely ignores these directives, the center can officially declare a full breakdown of constitutional machinery in that state.
Section 4. Resolving interstate disputes and keeping the peace.
The framers of the Constitution fully anticipated clashes, not just between the center and states, but between the states themselves. A classic example here is fighting over river waters. The Constitution explicitly authorizes Parliament to adjudicate any dispute over interstate rivers. If normal political negotiations fail, the Union government can step in and set up dedicated tribunals. And what's really fascinating is that the tribunal's award becomes final and binding the exact moment it hits the Gazette of India. No appeals.
Now, to proactively handle issues of common interest, the President established a massive interstate council back in May 1990.
It's headed by the Prime Minister and includes 6 Union Cabinet ministers right alongside the chief ministers of all the states. Its whole duty is to investigate and discuss shared challenges, major things like terrorism, Naxalism, and national integration. It's basically a giant forum designed specifically for coordination.
Finally, Section 5, the flow of money, literally the lifeblood of governance.
Let's follow the money trail, shall we? States mostly collect from localized sources that you might interact with daily. Think VAT, road taxes, or agricultural revenue. But the union? They control the absolute heavy hitters: corporate tax, customs, and stock exchange taxes. And even with shared pools like GST, the collection apparatus still heavily favors the center.
Because the center holds those primary purse strings and collects taxes on the most lucrative subjects, states inevitably fall short of the funds they actually need to run things. Consequently, they become incredibly reliant on the union government for resources through formal grants and aid. Parliament can hand out different sums to different states based on their specific need for assistance. So this financial dependency is essentially baked directly into the Constitution itself.
And this deep financial dependence leads to a rather provocative critique. Some observers ask, given that states have way fewer lucrative tax subjects and rely so heavily on the central government for their cash flow, are they truly independent entities? Or are they just glorified municipalities constantly having to ask the higher-ups for their budget? Which leaves us with the ultimate question about India's federal framework. Is this centralized gravity the brilliant secret that keeps a wildly diverse nation of over 1 billion people united? Or is it an inherent limit on the freedom of local state governance? That is absolutely something to ponder long after this explainer wraps up. Thanks for joining us.